Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and may God bless us. First of all, let's say thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of His blessing, we can gather together on this finally put trial. And also to our Prophet Muhammad SAW, who broke us from the dark era to the bright era. The respectable judges or examiners and all my beloved friends, my name is Afriagita Ilahi from 6BB class, and in this opportunity I would like to explain to you about my final report with the title Writing a Novella entitled I Do That to Present Traditional Wedding Dresses as Tourism-Inducing Attraction. During my work, I get some help from my supervisors, they are Mr. Najimuddin and Mr. Sunani. I divided the topic into 5 points, their background, literature review, research methodology, finding discussion, and also conclusion suggestion. I'll open the question answer section at the end of the presentation. Alright, without further ado, let's start it. Indonesia has a variety of traditional clothes in each region. The traditional cloth itself is useful as an identity in one area. Same as other regions in Indonesia, South Sumatra, especially Palembang, also has traditional clothes. The traditional cloth is originated from the Palembang Sultanate since the 16th century, which was largely influenced by the Sriwijaya Kingdom. At first, Palembang traditional clothes were used by certain people such as kings, princes, princesses, and pria. However, following the time, Palembang traditional clothes can be used by anyone during the wedding ceremony. Thus, these traditional clothes are known as Palembang traditional wedding dresses. Culture, like traditional wedding dresses, is something that is proud of an area. The people must have a desire that their culture is increasingly known to the general public. The way we introduce something to the general public is not only by gadget or communication mouth for mouth, but also by writing. The writing that more interesting to read is the writing that has a story or diction in it, or commonly known as literary work. One of literary work in Indonesia that is famous is fiction literary. Then, what is fiction literary? Fiction literature is a pure literary work that comes from the author or the writer's imagination, such as poetry, drama, short story, novella, and so on. Combining fiction with information like culture in a place is an alternative to introduce culture to the public. Disseminating cultural information in fiction can enrich the content of the story itself because there is a mixture of the emotion and feelings that the reader can create the feelings in the story. Therefore, the writer got the initiative to convey information about Palembang traditional wedding dresses with different depiction. This information will be included in the story and is presented along with the storyline of the story itself. Now, how about the problems of this report? The writer has 2 problems that the writer may need to answer or to solve it soon. So they are, first, how did the writer describe the construction process of novella? And the second one is, what is the structure of the novella entitled I Do That containing traditional wedding dresses of Palembang? This problem will be answered in chapter 4. So now we just continue to the next chapter, that is literature review. In this chapter, the writer has 2 important subjects, novella and Palembang traditional wedding dresses. Novella itself is one genre of fiction literary. By Carigan 1984, novella is an imaginative story that comes from imagination of author. According to Kasana 2016, novella has some characteristics, such as longer than short story but shorter than novels, has around 17,500 until 40,000 words, and the pages is under 200 pages, and the range to read per one novella is around 1 until 1.5 hours or more. Novella has element. The essential element is intrinsic element, same as what the writer cited from Nurdiantoro in the study et al. 2017, said that intrinsic element are the elements that directly participate in building story. According to Nurdiantoro 2015, the intrinsic elements of novella are character, or the person who playing the story, plot, or the sequence of events, setting, or the place, the time, or the period in which the story occurs, and then theme, or the basis idea of the story, and the last is point of view, or determine how much the reader should know or read. Alright, After we know about the definition, the characteristic, and the elements of novella, we also should know about how to writing a novella. Here, there are 4 steps in writing a novella according to Rampa 1995. The first one is determine the idea or theme. The second one is arrange the outline. The second one is develop the draft outline, and the last one is revise. Okay, now we continue to discuss about Palembang traditional wedding dresses. According to Amin 2020, in his interview, Palembang has two types of traditional wedding dresses. The first one is Aisan Gede and Aisan Pasangko. Aisan Gede is a traditional cloth that is used songket and gold jewelry. Same as what Hikmawati 2016 said in her journal, Aisan is decoration and Gede means greatness. So Aisan Gede is the greatness clothes. Meanwhile, Aisan Pasangko is traditional cloth that is used combination between baju kurung, songket, and gold jewelry. According to Ali Hanafiya cited in Hikmawati 2016, Pa means egg and Sangko or Sangkong means God. So Aisan Pasangko is a traditional clothes of 8 gods. So what is the difference between these two dresses? Is from the shape of the dress itself. If Aisan Pasangko has a long sleeve arms, then it's different with the Aisan Gede that is more open. Alright, now next point we'll discuss is chapter 3, which is research methodology, or the method that the writer used for this report. The writer used research and development method by Burke and Gall, but because the rule step is too much, so the writer used the modified one by Sukmadinata 2015, which only have 3 steps: preliminary study, model development, and final product and disseminating. For data collecting method, the writer used online interview and journal writing. And for data analyzing method is by phenomenology method, or is reverse to the qualitative research method that attempts to study the essence of phenomenon of experience from perspective of participants who have experienced it. So the writer analyzed the data from the result of the interview that the writer did. This interview is not asked for the information about Palembang traditional wedding dresses, but more in the field or in the word of writing that the other author experienced. Okay, now we continue to the next chapter, that is chapter 4, findings and discussion. Where in this chapter, the writer will explain how the application of R&D method and the problem formulation. In findings, for the preliminary study, there are 3 sub-steps. The first one is literature study. In here, the writer had read some books, journal, article, and e-books that related to the writer's final report. The second one is field survey. But in this report, the writer did not conduct field survey because of the corona pandemic that occurred in Indonesia. Therefore, the writer conducted an interview. The writer interviewed 2 people that had experience in the field of writing. They are Miss Rosita Andiana and Miss Ega Duyanti Putri. Next, model draft. The writer made the first draft with the title I Do That. The genre of this novella is fantasy and written in English. The first draft has more than 30,000 words. For the cover, the writer used the high school vibe, where there are 2 students that facing each other on the school rooftop. And at the back of the cover, the writer displayed a blurb or a synopsis of the story. For the opening section, the writer displayed table of content and prologue before entering the story. And for the main section and for the content, the writer described the whole of the story. In the first draft, the story has 18 chapters. And for the closing section, the writer displayed a present epilogue at the end of the story and also author profile. After made the first draft, the writer do the model development method, which is the second step of research and development method. In here, the writer gave the first draft to the limited expert and asked them to give some comment or revision. In limited testing, the writer had 3 experts. 2 of them are the author experts and 1 of them is linguist expert. The writer asked Miss Rosita, Miss Ega, and Mrs. Muwarni as limited expert. After the revision from the limited testing, the writer gave the first draft to the wider testing. In here, the writer have 2 experts in wider testing. As the writer mentioned in the previous chapter, that is the last step in research and development method by Sukmadinata 2015 is final testing and dissemination. But unfortunately, the writer could not do this due to the lack of time and budget. So the writer stopped until writer's testing and upload the story into the online platform that is Wattpad. So here, the final product of the novella I Do That. The size of this novella is 14 × 24 centimeters, and the writer made this novella as much as 172 pages with table of content and author profile. Alright, that's enough for the findings. Next, we continue to the discussion. The writer would like to discuss about construction process of the novella content and what is the structure of the novella I Do That. The construction process is the step in writing a novella. So the writer used the same step as Rampan 1995. They are, first, determine the idea. The writer got the story idea after playing a well-known game, that is, Truth or Dare game, which is a game that the player has two choices between giving an honest answer and accepting a challenge. After determining the idea, the writer decided to create a story with the theme of Truth or Dare games. Then the writer looked for any information related to the content of the story. Second, arrange the outline. In here, the writer made an outline in the mobile node containing characterization, plot setting, and point of view. Based on what Adiana 2020 said in her interview, the writer made a framework as in the table below. This is talking about the character and characterization. And then the writer determined the setting because this story is suitable for the teenage, like the school people. Then the writer decided the setting as an in-house, school, and Palembang. Why did the writer add Palembang as one of the setting? Because the writer would like to introduce Palembang traditional wedding dresses. Next, the writer determined the storyline. According to Adiana 2020, there are three plots. The first one is forward plots, the second one is backward plots, and the third one is back and forth plots are mixed plots. In here, the writer used mixed plot, where the incident was happened back and forward. The writer also added the date on which time or flow is changes, so it could help the readers to understand the plots. Finally, the writer specified a point of view. In here, the writer used the third-person point of view because it gives the writer considerable amounts of freedom to focus on different people, places, and events without being limited within the consciousness of a single character. Third, develop the draft outline. At this stage, the writer developed the idea and the framework or the outline into a comprehensive story form. And the last step is revise. In here, the writer read it again the novella I Do That and justified the words that were not quite right and added an explanation that's still lacking and also removed the paragraph that were not too important. The writer also asked for help from some expert to give some comments and revision to make the story be better. Alright, now the next discussion is what is the structure of the novella I Do That. According to Suhaili et al. 2017, there are 5 narrative structures of the novella. The first one is introduction, the second one is complication, the third one is rising action, the fourth one is turning point, and the last one is completion or cut ending. In this story, the writer introduced the characters, arranged the scenes, and the relation between the characters. The writer also explained about the Truth or Dare game, which is the cure or the theme of the story. For the complication, the writer presents an initial event that gives rise to various problems, conflicts, and difficulties for the characters. The problem or the complication for the novella I Do That began when there was challenge to approach Angga. For the rising action, the writer involvement of sharing a situation that is cause increased hardship features. So in this section, all of the problems are uncovered. Next is turning point, or also called as climax. So here, the part of the story the biggest and the most thrilling. And the last is completion or coda. This section contains an explanation of attitudes or fates experienced by the character after experiencing that turning point. Alright, the last point is chapter 5, which is conclusion and suggestion. This study used the method of library approach and online review to get some information about writing process and the content of novella. There were 4 steps in writing I Do Dare novella, and there were 3 experts that approved that the story of the novella is publishable. The novella written in English and can be read by anyone from all over the world. Travelers are motivated by different factors to visit a tourist or tourism destination which has been featured on novel or novella. So, the writer suggests for the next researcher or for the future researcher to carry out more research in the area of novella-induced tourism, especially into a social aspect or cultural. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now we're at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your great attention, and please give a comment or suggest or critique or question regarding to my presentation. So for the judges and audience, please feel free to ask. Alright, thank you so much for the question, critique, comment, suggestion. I really appreciate it. And I end this presentation with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.